There we go. We'll see if the YouTube folks net come aboard here in just a bit. And let's see here. Let's get things squared away here. And get that done here real quick. Bear with me one moment, folks. Got off to such an early start here. It was out before the opening bell on that here this morning. We'll get that all situated. And we'll get on with the rest of the show. So without further ado, some of the other stuff we're going to get to here on the broadcast here this morning. Again, if you're just tuning in, we started off with the Larry Klayman Annette sitting down with Greg Hunter from USA Watchdog here this morning. You can rewind the tape over on the various platforms, over on Rumble, over on DLive, over on Kick, over on the Foxhole, wherever you may be tuning in from here this morning. Check that out. Some of the other stuff we're going to get to on the broadcast here this morning, though, we do have a few things, Nat, to get to. Again, there's a piece, Nat, we just got done covering. We'll also talk about the U.S. pending home sales rise the most in almost a year as mortgage rates slide. We'll get into some data out here a day back. Of course, the government shut down and that, not kicking a lot of data out here for the markets, but seemingly we seem to be still going along here without all these folks not sitting in their offices, as Larry portends that, you can't hardly get them to do their jobs. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy warns of nationwide flight delays amid government shutdown. Of course, you may be experiencing some of that as we speak. For anybody who's been traveling, may experience some delays. Build that into your timeline, and that, I suppose, your itinerary, as this shutdown and that drags on. Also, Fed cuts 25 basis points and quantitative tightening as expected. Two FOMC officials dissent. This back here 2 days ago. The quarter point drop, what that entails, etc. We'll get into the details. Also talk about fund advisor responds California's retirement fund lost 71% of its $46 billion clean energy, and won't say how. Yeah, we'll get into that here. CalPERS, Nat. The retirement fund out in California. Of course, you know what this is all about. It's all about the DEI, ESG nonsense, the woke crap and that they invested in that, by way of their investments does not guarantee a return on investment. Yeah, fiduciary duty, anybody? Where are the investors net who are suing the state over that nonsense? Also, where the world eats the most meat rather, and the least. We'll get into the details there. Interesting graphic. I'll also talk about Carvana shares plunged nearly 10% despite strong headline earnings. Carvana and that in the news here as of late, with some of the subprime folks net going belly up and that, especially down to the south, and all the illegals net they tried to cater a lot of this stuff to. We'll get into some of the details there. Also, OpenAI reportedly targets $1 trillion valuation as IPO window opens. We'll get into that here for 2027. Again, all the hype and that around all this AI nonsense. Where are the details on how the hell they expect to make money? No details. There's no guarantee they're going to be profitable, but $1 trillion, I guess that's where we're at here these days. Just keep throwing more money at this stuff. And rising electricity prices to make winter more costly for most U.S. households. We'll get into details there as well. Obviously, we know inflation that has jacked up electricity prices. You throw AI and data centers in on top of that into the mix. And what about natural gas and oil? All that good stuff. We'll talk about that here in just a bit. Also get into Trump Jr., 1789 Capital's patriotic capitalism will unleash American prosperity. Talk about from rags to riches, as it is typically said here. You remember that the most of DJT's family was debanked in that as part of Operation, not Warp Speed, but, oh boy, it just slipped right off the end of my tongue. Operation, dang, and it just slipped. Anyway, we'll get into the details there as well. I'll also talk about Amazon soars to record high on solid guidance, improving AWS results. We'll talk about Amazon out here yesterday, one of the Mag 7s, and then, of course, Apple also out here yesterday, dumping then pumping despite dismal China sales. So I think we're through just about all the Mag 7 names net here. And then also Las Vegas slowdown deepens as gamblers report unaffordable Sin City. So gone are the days of the free buffets and the comps and all that good stuff. No, you're going to pay for it. And chances are people not going to Sin City these days and probably doing it more online, where you can do it from the confines of your house for far cheaper. So just some of the stuff we're going to get to on the broadcast here today. And without further ado, I'll slide over and check out the weather here this morning. See what's doing across the country here. And it looks like, again, out to the west we go here this morning. Looks like a little bit of a system net coming down out of Canada, just about to hit the Pacific Northwest here, coming in by way of Washington State. Otherwise, everybody else net looking pretty free and clear and net here on the morning. Pretty much across the back third. Yeah, it looks like most of the southern part of the U.S. here this morning, all free and clear. It looks like some of the scatter net coming across the radar by way of the Dakotas, coming across into Minnesota here this morning. See what that does here by way of precip here in just a minute. And then, of course, we got up in New England. Looks like New York up through Vermont, New Hampshire, up into Maine. Looks like a little bit of a system cruising through there. Clear over to Newfoundland and that up in Canada. And there is a remnants of Melissa, by the way, hanging out here. Looks like it is going pretty far out to sea here. And looks like, I don't know, I guess they're projecting this thing's going to go on for a while here over the next 24, 48, maybe 72 hours or so. See what that does. But the damage net done in Jamaica here as of late. Haven't seen a lot of reports of pictures and video and that out of there, as I suspect most of their power net has been knocked out. But nonetheless, and then over on the Pacific side, I think we're pretty free and clear on that side as well. No major spinners on the water on the Pacific side here, just Melissa hanging out on the Atlantic and at least not coming anywhere close to the U.S. by way of landfall anytime soon, if ever. Then, of course, no others net on the Atlantic side either, coming net off the Horn of Africa here in the next day or two. Looks like hurricane season net likely winding down and nary a strike on the East Coast or through the Gulf net here this season. Probably duly needed, especially after last year when we had the devastation net up through Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas net here last year with the devastations of those sets of hurricanes. From there, we take a look at the precip here this morning. Again, out to the Pacific Northwest, just starting to creep in up in Washington State, maybe up through the Puget Sound. Looks like maybe starting to see a little bit of rain through there. Should be shoving eastward in that here. May start to see that here a little bit later on in the day. Otherwise, across top end of the country here, it looks like getting a little bit of rain. And it looks like that coming across the Dakotas into Minnesota, maybe a little bit across the upper peninsula of Michigan and up into Wisconsin net there this morning. Otherwise, everybody else net out to the west and down across south under high pressure dome net here this morning. Folks net out to the east, New York, coming up across Vermont, New Hampshire, up into Maine. Looks like contending with a little bit of rain, thunderstorm activity net up in those parts, putting down maybe under a tenth or so of an inch, it looks like at the moment. Otherwise, the bulk of it, the net north of the border, up in Canada here this morning. And then it looks like it's kind of wrapping around and tying into the back end of Melissa net as it heads out to sea. We'll see what that does. And by way of temperatures net here this morning. Folks net down in Florida coming in right around the, looks like low 70-degree mark net here to start your Friday. To the north, looks like in the upper 50s, so about a 10-15-degree swing or so. Folks net to the north, that up in Georgia this morning, 50s net up around the Atlanta area. It looks like folks net coming up through the eastern seaboard, through the Carolinas, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, up through that corridor. Looks like in the 50s net here this morning as well. 50s net pushing pretty much up through the New England there. It looks like some 40s net start to tail off by the time you get up to about the maybe New Jersey area net through there. New York in the 40s net across much of the state. Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine in the 50s net here this morning. Back coming down across Pennsylvania, it looks like some 40s net off to the west and some 50s net more toward the east. West Virginia in the 40s net here this morning as well. And by the time you work your way back down toward the Gulf of America here this morning, looks like Florida coming across, Alabama, Mississippi, over into Louisiana. Pretty much holding around the mid upper 50s net here this morning and coming back down around the coastal areas of Texas, down toward the Houston, Galveston area. Looks like the 60s net, maybe upper 50s, and southern part of Texas net coming in mid 60s net here this morning as well. To the north, it looks like right around the low 40s net here this morning, so about a 20-25 degree swing. Top to bottom of Texas net here this morning. Pretty chilly to start your morning if you're in the northern parts there. Oklahoma in the 40s, looks like Kansas in the 30s, 40s net pushing up through the plains, and some 30s and 40s net pretty much in the mix all across the Dakotas and coming back across into Minnesota. Looks like in the 30s net here this morning, 40s net more toward the south. Looks like Wisconsin in the 40s net here and maybe mid 40s net by the time you work your way down toward the Milwaukee area in that here on the morn. And it looks like back to the west of that, if you're in, looks like the western part of the Dakotas and into the eastern portions of Montana, it looks like some 20s and 30s net through there. 20s net up around the Canadian border here this morning, up around the northern parts of Montana. And back to the west of that, looks like some 20s and 30s net both in Idaho there. Pushing all the way down into Wyoming, 20s and 30s net through there, and all the way down into Colorado here this morning. Folks net to the west of that, though, it looks like some 30s net in Washington State and 40s net, mid 40s, upper 40s net along the coastal areas of Washington State, down into Oregon. Looks like some 30s net more toward the east side of the state there. Looks like coming across top end of California, some 30s in there, and also some 40s and 50s net across top end of California here this morning. Pushing down to the south, looks like your southern part of Cali here this morning, going to be in the mid 60s net to start your morning. Folks net down in southwest portions of Arizona, it looks like in the 60s net here this morning as well. Northern part of the state there, and off to the east, looks like some 40s, and over into New Mexico, into some 30s and 40s, maybe some 20s net in the mix there, down in the Four Corners area as well. And it looks like by way of cloud cover net here on the morning, it looks like there you see those clouds net pushing in off the west coast and coming down out of Canada net in the Pacific Northwest. Periods of open sun, and the folks net out in Idaho, Montana, and down through maybe Utah, Nevada, down into those parts, seeing some sun and net here for a little bit. And there you see some clouds net pushing eastward in net from the east side of Utah, coming across Colorado into the plains. Northern part of the country in net also under some clouds, Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin. And there you see the rest of the system in net pushing through New England in net here this morning. Pennsylvania all the way up to Maine in net here this morning. Everybody else net south of about Maryland, down into Florida, looking pretty good net on the day, as are the folks net across the southeast and back toward Texas under that high pressure net here this morning. There's a quick take a look at the weather and by way of power outages in that here this morning. I'll back that up here. Take a look, see what's doing around the country. And it looks like we got about 73,000 or so without power across the country here. Folks net up in New Hampshire, the one with the power outages net here this morning, hitting the old stoplight charts. Looks like maybe those storms net coming across through New England net, maybe packing a little bit of a punch there. And let's see, looks like maybe, what is that? Belknap County. It looks like the major offender there got about 1,500 folks without power. And it looks like some of the surrounding counties net also got some power outages net. Tripped the old stoplight charts on the old maps net here this morning. So if you're in those parts, hopefully get your power restored and quickly over in those areas. Hillsborough County got about 4,400 folks without power up in New Hampshire and net here this morning as well. And from there, we go over to the smoke and fire maps. And it looks like folks net again up in Canada. Still got plenty of fires net up in Alberta and coming across to the western provinces net through there. A couple off east of Alberta. Looks like a couple, 2, 3, 7, 15 or so fires net over in those parts. Otherwise, everything in net west of pretty much Calgary and maybe even west of Vancouver, it looks like. Otherwise, looks like out to the Pacific Northwest, we still got a lot of hot spots net out in Washington State, coming across Idaho, into the western ports of Montana, down through Oregon, and all through those areas. Looks like some of those kicking up quite a bit of dense smoke, so you may see some poor air quality in that across eastern side of Washington State and down into Oregon, pushing over into Idaho and that here on this Friday. Folks net down in the southern or the northern parts of California. Still got about a couple, 2, 3, 4 fires through there. Another 40-some fires net north of Sacramento. Looks like another half dozen or so fires net down east of Fresno. And a couple, 2, 3, 9 fires net down south of San Diego and net here on the morning as well. A couple fires net maybe through the plains and into the Midwest net here this morning. Salt Lake City, just east of there, got a couple fires net over in those parts. Otherwise, looks like folks net down across the southeast. Again, last couple of days, it looks like they've been tamped down with some of the rain and net going through. It looks like that is still pretty much holding. Still got about a couple, 2, 3 dozen fires or so down in Florida. Maybe a couple, 2, 3, 4 up in Georgia, Alabama line. Folks net Louisiana got dozens and dozens of fires. Some in net off to the east side of Texas. Pushing up in Arkansas as well. A couple onesie, twosie fires net through those parts. But nowhere near what we've seen in the last weeks and months in that past. So there's a quick take a look at that, and by way of the rundown through the market here this morning. Futures rebounded, lifted by strong Amazon, Apple earnings. We'll get into that here, and folks net over on YouTube side. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always, and for those net who are still there, perhaps if you could make your way over to the other platforms net here on the morning. Appreciate you hanging out. Get over onto Rumble, over to DLive, over to Foxhole, over to Kick, wherever you may be tuning in from here, and continue on with